Hi, everyone. Welcome. So happy to have all of you here with us today. Actually, I just realized that we are kicking off three things today. We are kicking off the design partner sessions. That means that probably like 70% of what we build in Parta is co-authored with users. We call them design partners. So we decided that there is so much great stuff that we've built together with our partners, and we wanted just to showcase it. Not just like inspire or excite you, but really kind of share the screen and show how that works. Secondly, we're kicking off the season one of Design Partner Session, which is called Building with Parta MCP. We released Parta MCP about like 7 weeks ago, and we had a great cohort of partners. I'll just share the screen quickly. Yeah, you can see Notion, Airtable, Personio, Panda, UiPath, Master Control, Zapier, and MaintainX. Thanks everyone for joining us in this design partner session. And kind of today's webinar is the product of this design partner program. We've tested 7 different hypotheses. You can see all of them on the screen. But today we are focusing on 2 of them, the content maintenance and localization. And I'm super excited to start with the content maintenance because I think it's very topical for all of us. Kind of all our product teams accelerated massively in the last like 12 months with AI. So the content maintenance has become an kind of the challenge for probably everyone on today's call. So I'm so happy that we are also kicking off this season 1 with our great partners, Team Notion. They will kind of tell more about themselves in a minute, but prior to that, I also want to just quickly introduce Ryan, my co-host and friend from Team Zapier. Ryan's role today is that we ensure that all the hard and tricky questions have been asked. And because Ryan was also part of this design partner program, he knows everything firsthand. And I think he can just like highlight those things that will be the most important for the audience. So with that, I would probably pass the mic to Team Notion, and let's kick it off.
All right, can you all see my screen? All right, amazing. Hi everyone. Thank you so much for taking the time to be here today. Very excited to share what we've been building alongside Parta's MCP. It's really changed how we've worked in such meaningful ways, and I'm excited to walk you through it. But before we get on to the demos, just wanted to shout out to my co-presenters today. We have Veronica, who is our partner enablement team here at Notion, and we have Leah, who is our localization project manager. And together, we've been testing out the Parta MCP in different ways to see how it can fit our workflows. Okay, I'll go first and I'll talk about content maintenance, and Veronica and Leah will take over localization, which is a whole ball game of its own. All right, so who are we and what do we do? So we manage Notion Academy. So for some context, Notion Academy is our self-paced learning platform designed to help users get really proficient at learning Notion. And we do this through guided courses, curated learning paths, and certifications. And this really matters. Like building Notion Academy, if you may or may not know, last year we did a bit of a rebrand. So we moved Notion Academy, which previously used to sit on our Notion Help Center, out to its own website and standalone site so we can make a more premium learning experience for our users. And with that, we had many demands that we needed to meet. And we were so lucky to have Parta partner with us and bring our vision to life. Okay, so on the screen, you see this is an example of a course we host in Notion. And something really important is that we have a really high bar for quality and true to and we wanted to stay really true to Notion's design and brand. And we wanted to make all our courses and learning experiences very visually rich, engaging, and then full of multimedia, because that is how we generally teach at Notion, whether we're doing demos with customers or we're teaching internal stakeholders how to ramp up on a product. This is how we tend to teach here at Notion. So these were our non-negotiables, and we were really lucky that Parta was able to help us bring that vision to life. Okay, a little bit of our operating model. We collaborate and strategize in Notion itself. So all our product experts and SMEs work off of Notion docs and Notion databases. And for a learning and content team, we use Notion as our central system of record. Um, we've now powered it with Parta MCP, which I'll come to in a minute, but that also holds the record for all the metadata of all the content we host in Parta. Now, to actually track our work, we use Notion databases, and most recently, we've started incorporating using custom agents to automate our workflows end to end. And finally, once we have all our content vetted on Notion, we then move on to Parta, and Parta has been amazing at helping build custom templates for us to keep that brand identity alive. And also, most recently, we've started working with Parta and TVs to make these workflows even more powerful. Okay, so a couple of weeks ago, when Parta invited us to be a part of their cohort of industry peers to help shape how Parta MCP would look, we had a very interesting discussion on like how do we fit Parta MCP into our use cases. And one of the most straightforward ways, the timing was perfect because one of the ways that we were looking at incorporating Parta MCP was directly to our custom agents. One thing that this would achieve was making sure that our content would stay way more close to our launches and instead of having a lag in updates. The other area that we were also exploring is to see if we could use Parta MCP to improve our localization workflows. This was a little different from our other peers in the cohort who were primarily focused on building net new content. Before I dive into the use case itself, I used a term here called custom agents. So if you're not familiar with what custom agents are, here's this quick learning. A custom agent is an AI teammate that you set up in Notion once. It handles a specific recurring job in your Notion workspace. You give it instructions, you decide when it should run, and you choose exactly what it can see and use. Then, whether you're on Notion or not, it works in the background and takes the busy work off our plates. And this has been a game changer across the company to help automate so many of our workflows. And here's the anatomy of what a custom agent's UI looks like. So just so that you can orient yourself as we go through the demos. So you can see on the left hand of this screen, it has a chat box. So you chat with your agent in plain, simple language and share with it what you want it to achieve or do for you today. You set up triggers to help you understand, to help the agent understand when to kick off. You give it instructions. You give it instructions on how you want your outcomes to look. And then finally, you give it access to the tools you want it connected to so it can pull information from that. And most powerful and most importantly, this is where you can connect your MCP to make these workflows and your custom agents even more powerful. Custom agents also are, you can choose multiple models for your custom agent. So we work with a host of LLMs across the board. So we can choose the model that best fits our workflow. All right. And the reason why this is my favorite part, and the reason why this custom agents has been a game changer is because you set it up once and the whole team gets to benefit from it. You set it up once through a prompt, you add in your triggers, you tell it what you want it to do, and then you kick it off, and then it runs on its own in the background. And the best part is, as it runs, it improves on its own feedback. So the more information, the more signals, the more feedback you give your custom agent, the better it's going to perform in the future. And I want to pause here. And before I dive into a use case, you might be thinking, okay, custom agents, I don't work on Notion, so how is this going to work for me? I think the important thing to keep in mind is that these are the tools that help enable these workflows. And it doesn't matter what AI tool that you work with today, as long as you have something that you can prompt, somewhere you can add triggers, and somewhere you can define outcomes, you should be able to create this agentic workflow on your side as well. All right. Okay. So I'm going to dive right into my use case, which is content maintenance. Okay, so people ask us, when we were actually part of the cohort, a lot of people asked me, like, why are you focusing on content maintenance versus content creation, net new content creation? So on Academy, we tend to teach end-to-end workflows, not just single features. A lesson or a course or a certification usually connects several parts of the product together. So there's no one-to-one mapping for each feature to a learning content. So we were deliberate about so keeping this framework in mind, we're very deliberate about what new content we want on Academy in terms of new courses or new certification. But that also means keeping the existing content accurate is very, very important. And this is what it looks like in practice. We could start off our typical week with one new launch talk, but in that same week or within that same time period, we could get so many more things launching here at Notion. And it's just hard to keep track of what's happening at the pace at which things are shipping here. And on top of that, we need to understand that launches just don't come in the form of launch docs, or content updates just don't come in the form of launch docs. We also get requests on Slack for feedback on Academy and things that we can improve. So really, we're getting signals from all over the place, and we have to, before custom agents, we had to really keep track of like, how do we stay on top of this? And we ran the risk of our content getting very stale very fast. Oops. And yes, that's a meme of us just struggling to keep up with the pace of launches here at Notion. Really, thank God for custom agents and Parta MCP, who has just been a game changer in what we've been able to achieve. Okay, so we built custom agents to automatically detect content drift and update content for us. This was a huge unlock for us. So we built two custom agents. We have the Academy Drift agent here and the Parta Pal here. The Academy Drift agent goes into our launch docs, checks out what's happening, and gives us a recommendation on what we should be changing in our learning content. And then the Parta Pal actually drafts those changes for us and stages them on Parta for us directly. And both these custom agents are powered by Parta's MCP. Okay, before we jump into the demo, I want to kind of focus on the mechanics and what happens behind the scene. So bear with me a little bit here. So first, the custom agent, the Academy Drift agent looks into a launch doc, identifies identifies what needs to be scoped, and also identifies which Parta lessons are impacted. We gave the agents signals on how to build higher confidence in suggesting content changes to us. Then it generates a recommendation report for us to look at and take a call on what we want to change or not. Then someone from our team goes in, reviews the report, assesses the recommendations, either accepts or rejects some of the suggestions provided. And remember, the more feedback you give your agent on what's working and what's not working, the more powerful it becomes at its recommendations over time. Once we are good with the recommendations and we want to implement some of them, we then hand this task off to Partapal, which is another agent. This agent drafts everything for us and then gives us the draft for us for one final quick look. And this is important where the human comes back into the loop because we wanted to make sure that the draft is accurate. It includes screenshots of like product UI, which the agent can do today, and make sure that we're keeping pace with what's happening in our stakeholder conversations with are not happening on the docs directly. And so this is the part where we feel like a human review is really important. And once we finalize the content that can go live, we hand it back over to Parta Pal, and Parta Pal goes and stages this for us directly in Parta. The cool thing about this workflow is Pal smartly recognizes all our all our custom templates that Parta built for us for Notion Academy, and even identifies the blocks within those templates to help make sure that it's not just making text updates, it's actually making dynamic, multimedia focused updates. And that's it. Once the agent stages everything in Parta, the hard work is done. We come back for one final quick review before we actually publish things on Academy. All right. And I'm going to zoom out for a second here just to show the architecture as a whole. You can see within each step, the overarching system of record is Notion and Parta. Again, we use Notion as our source of truth for all product changes, launches, changes on things that we're shipping and stakeholder conversations, and we stage our content there. And then we use Parta as our system of record for the final content that we put out on Notion Academy. And the Parta MCP connector makes it even more powerful by making sure our custom agents are able to come in and out of either Notion or Parta to make sure it's making accurate changes. And now onto the demo itself. Oops. Let me just check. Oh no. There we go. Sorry, we have to go through these, don't we?
It wouldn't be a live demo without, a little bit of real life intermission here.
Absolutely. All right, okay. Sorry about that, folks. So before I play this video, this is a sped up video of an actual workflow. So bear in mind that though this video is about 5 minutes long, in reality, the custom agent takes about 15 to 20 minutes, depending on how big the scope is for that particular launch. And I'll walk you through each step here. Okay, I'm going to start off with what's on screen right now. This is our Notion Academy's task dashboard. This is where my team and I actually scope our content. So we've set it up as a Kanban board, and you can see that there's a block for each stage of the content creation process. This is the Academy Drift agent. This agent is the one that we will tag in our launch docs. You can see that I've set the trigger to when at mentioned in Notion. So it only works when it's called upon. And then we have Partapal over here, who is our content drafting and content staging agent that works based off a property that changes in our database. And so this is just to orient you on like the two agents. Now we have a launch doc. So this is an actual launch doc that we have. I made a copy of this so that I don't mess up any of the internal workflows. But this is an actual launch doc. This is how it's staged. It provides details of the launch, including screenshots. And if I want to kick off my workflow, I start off by mentioning or tagging my Academy Drift agent. And I ask it to review the launch doc for any inconsistencies. And you can see it's already put to work. Yep. So it's looking through the launch doc right now and taking a quick check on what's changed and how we should be thinking about this in the context of Notion Academy. Okay, it created a new task for us, and this is our report. I'm going to pause here for a quick second. Oops. And then we mention it. Apologies. And you can see, yeah. It's created a new task for us. And we open up the task, and I'm going to pause here for a quick second. You can see on the screen that there are a bunch of different properties. You can see the status, the reviewer, the content type, and so on. And this is what the agent has actually intelligently tagged for us to give us a quick snapshot of what's happening on this particular launch. Now the agent has also created a report for us on what it thinks that we should change in Notion Academy. We fed in logic in its instructions to make recommendations with high confidence. And so the more feedback we give the agent, the more accurate its recommendations become. So at this point, we've tested this a bunch of times. So feeling really good about the recommendations it's provided here on the things we change. Then in the final actions callout box below, you can see I'm looking at the recommendations and I am deciding which ones I want to change, depending on the context of how that course is structured. And then once I'm good with that, I change the status of the report to drafting. And what this does is immediately kicks off the second agent, which is part of PAL. You can see it's getting to work already. And now what part of PAL is doing behind the scenes is it's drafting content for us. So for every new lesson, it creates a subtask for us. And as you can see, it's smartly identified the part of blocks. It's given us, exactly where we need to put in the new content. It's even put in the screenshot from the launch doc. This is the second lesson that we're updating. So yeah, and once I feel good about this, I change the status of these subtasks to approved. And once I do that, and the task moves to the approved column, Partapal kicks off again and is actually doing all the work behind the scenes and staging everything on Parta. When the task moves to QA Parta, that means that this is ready for us to review for one final time on Parta itself. So let's just go to an example lesson. So this is the editor, Parta editor, and I'm going to scroll down to the section it suggested it change. So the triggers and schedule section, and you can see that it's added in where my mouse is right now, all the new elements that it suggested. And the cool thing is that it identifies the blocks that we've used and the templates that we've used. So it's also suggested that we retain that format. And we can obviously give it feedback if we want to change that, and it'll learn from that too. So in the second lesson, it's just made a minor content update. And this is great because now Partapal is just looking at all our content and making smart decisions versus having me go through every individual piece of content and then decide, should this update go in here or not? And so we've already impacted 2 lessons to keep them fresh. And yeah, last but not least, I marked these as published once. For demo purposes, I marked them as published for now. But in reality, I would go ahead and publish this on our LMS, and this is good to go. Okay, this is huge. In practice, you imagine that automated workflow for the many launches we deal with every single week. The agents are going in and staging everything for us. We're coming in and out whenever we need a little bit more human judgment. But other than that, the agents are taking care of everything else in the background. And the impact has been crazy. We're saving about 1 to 2 hours per week, which would have gone into spending time sifting through launches and then figuring out where we'd make really, really small content updates. Because Parta MCP smartly recognizes the blocks and templates used, we're able to preserve the quality of our content on Notion Academy. Content now stays fresh and up to date for our learners. That continues to build trust with them. And with every review cycle, these custom agents become more and more accurate and reliable, gradually reducing the need for any humans in the loop. And then finally, and the thing that I'm most excited about, we are able to scale our content in a sustainable way. Key word here being sustainable, because many of us here know today that we struggle so much with content debt in our own learning ecosystem. So this is the impact we're seeing, and we're continuing to iterate on the custom agents and make them more strong, and continuing to work with Parta to make sure that our MCP connection also stays just as strong. Before I hand it off to Leah and Veronica, just want to kind of touch upon a few things that I was reflecting on as we built this with Parta. So one is the thing to acknowledge is the learning designer's role is evolving with AI. I'm sure all of you are feeling the impact today. But in building this simple flow, a couple of things have come to mind. I now spend less time on content upkeep, And this is going to be true for so many of our workflows in the learning ecosystem. We're going to minimize our time spending time doing things like reformatting, re-recording, chasing updates, all these things which are repeatable, we can automate and hand off to our agents. We move into a way more strategic role. I mean, this is what we signed up for. This is what we're here for today. We will be part of more conversations that deserve the time for better design decisions, whether that's making sure content is accurate, whether that's thinking of new learning experience. This freeing up 1 to 2 hours per week has really changed on the amount of work that I've taken on and how much more strategic I am. And finally, we're learning this new skill, which is orchestrating agents, that is setting up agents well, giving them the right context, and knowing when to trust their output. Think of them as your teammates helping you kind of take care of the more labor intensive things where you can focus on the more meaningful conversations. And I know and I feel the effects every single day. Yeah, but happy to answer any questions at the end. Very excited to continue building with Parta. I'm going to hand it over to Leah
Just
and
just a quick one, Erin. I feel like just you've covered so much great stuff, and we have great questions. So let's make a kind of minor change to our initial plan, and let's dedicate maybe like 5-10 minutes now to go through the questions that we have now in the
sounds
chat.
good.
Ryan, do you want to take over
Yeah.
this?
So, all right, this is amazing work. It totally makes sense that a company that does automation in its core product would be then at the vanguard of how do we use automation for content, keeping content up to date. Super cool how it's reducing the content debt. I'm wondering what happens, and this was a question somebody posted. What happens if a product changes significantly and that impacts a course or a lesson's objectives? So it's not just like a minor paragraph tweak here or there, but it like really changes the nature of the lesson.
Great question. Thank you so much for asking. I think in moments like that, we take a more strategic call as a team, whether to keep the content up or take it down altogether. I think when bigger changes like that happen, we then step to the role of like net new content creation. And I would say that includes the scope of really significant product changes as well. And so I know that many of our peers in the industry who've worked as a part of the design cohort have been using Parta to create net new content as well. So that's definitely what we're going to explore soon. But right now, I think the nature of our business is we're making so many smaller incremental changes to the product that it doesn't warrant that level of upkeep, that level of effort to kind of create net new content yet. But it's a problem that we know that is coming with every big launch that's there. Yeah. And sorry, I just want to add on to that. Our agent, we actually train the agent to give us that recommendation back. If the agent is not able to suggest a meaningful change to existing content, and its overarching recommendation is for us to move in the direction of creating net new content, the agent actually says that in its report to us, and then we take a call as a team on like what we want to do with that content.
It's brilliant. And having that self-learning mechanism within the agent seems like a really cool feature for helping it
Yeah,
improve.
for
Uh,
sure.
I'm also curious when, like, you've got this goal of having rich content that's really engaging, and I'm sure that means images and video. How how are you thinking about AI and your like image refresh or your like for screenshots or for video files?
For sure. I think it is really challenging. In reality, um, that's still something that we have to chase down as learning designers here, at least at Notion. We are lucky enough that we get to beta test and alpha test a lot of our features. So we have a really good understanding of what's coming our way. And we keep a really close connection with our internal stakeholders, whether that's product operations or our product managers, to keep on top of like what's changing on the UI side. And so wherever we're able to like make that process more standard in content sharing, we're doing that behind the scenes. Um, the cool thing about the Parta MCP workflow is we still have to go in and add in fresh screenshots if they're not available in the launch docs or source docs into the final drafts if the agent isn't able to pull from them. But the cool thing is that once it's staged, the Parta MCP is able to go ahead and put it in Parta directly. Um, right now, the operating model that we're working with is that assume that with every product change that you're working with, the associated UI has also evolved. So we will look at screenshots as well. I know that while we were a part of the design cohort, we all of us are coming up with very smart ways of doing this. For example, for videos, we even looked at adding blocks with the video script in so that the Parta MCP is able to read the video script behind the scenes, but we don't necessarily show that script out to users. So again, it's something that we're still figuring out. It's not perfect today, but it's way better than what we've been doing previously in terms of like manually hunting things and then manually updating it on Parta.
Brilliant. And I'm just a translation piece for anybody who just adding a little bit of additional commentary. So you want your agent to be able to have really good context about what's in the course, as well as like an additional chunk of context, which is your help doc or like the new product release, plus context, which is like your writing style guide and how we author courses and what blocks and Parta to use. Um, and that first piece of context, what's in the course, if your video script isn't part of that context, then the AI agent isn't going to be able to make good decisions. And so what Arya is talking about is like, hey, people are experimenting with how do we get the video script into that context,
Yeah.
into what the agent's able to access.
Yeah.
Brilliant. Uh, there's other questions, but this is probably a good time to jump to the next section, eh? Or
I feel
anything
like
else,
we have
Andrew?
one. I feel like we have one of the super upvoted from Alyssa about the relationship with the product side to ensure that area your team have everything that you need. Can you just share some light on the relationship with the product team and whether you're dependent on the success on your side from the quality
Yeah.
that you're getting from them?
Yeah, I think one general best practice we follow company-wide is that we have a centralized um, database that hosts all our upcoming campaigns and launches. And this is something even when our sales and enablement reps are representing Notion in different conversations with customers, we also encourage to use Notion as a system of record to host all your campaigns and launches or your projects in one spot. And the power of doing that is that it creates a central source of truth for our team. So because we have a centralized campaigns and launch database, a lot of our workflows across multiple teams at Notion rely on that central system. That really is our heartbeat of how we ship at Notion. And we were able to connect our custom agents directly to that database. So that way we don't have to rely on individual PMs or individual product ops people to help us make sense of what's shipping, as long as we are up to date with the launches, the launch tracker itself, which is the central source for the entire company at this point. That's been really helpful in making sure that we stay up to date with what's shipping. So all those launch docs I shared in one of the previous slides, all of those are launch docs that live in that central tracker. So our conversation with PMs and other product experts in the company really move away from like how do we keep this more organized? How do we keep this more central? Although there's little pain points here and there, for the most part, there is an overarching structure that helps facilitate those conversations. And our conversations are more into the depth of the product itself and the product and feature functionalities. And I think that's really helped strengthen our relationships with our product experts at the company, having a centralized system that all of us can rely on. And that is the power of using Notion, a tool like Notion as well.
I'm just
And can I
gonna,
just real quick,
oh, please.
actually? Because Arya, I mean, you've explained it so perfectly, but also thinking about how like the context layer is where Notion comes in. But if you are not using Notion, like Arya, correct me if I'm wrong, but the assumption there is like, well, wherever you have those launch docs, wherever they're located, you could then connect the Parta MCP, but it probably won't be as seamless of a process. So I can also see like an anonymous attendee asked a question here too about like the metadata to help guide the drift detection agent. It's all kind of connected where it's like as good as your source content is, like the database where you have all those launch docs or you have those documents, like that translation into Parta is going to be quicker with that MCP agent connection. But if you don't have that, you can still use the MCP. You can still make those updates. Maybe you won't get like 5 hours of your time back. You'll get 3 hours of your time back and you'll still have to make more updates on like the Parta end.
Yeah. I'm just gonna add a yes and. Uh, there's this meta trend of companies that have a centralized, clean repositories of company knowledge uh, are at a really big advantage for then tapping into those knowledge sources through AI. And so, like at Zapier, we'll be connecting. We use Zapier's MCP, but also you could use like other MCPs for connecting to Slack as a knowledge source, for Granola for our meeting notes, because we transcribe our meetings using Granola, and then like Coda for company docs, and then we use what is it, Glean, that kind of pulls a lot of these different things together, and also will pull in from Jira. So the pattern, probably half of you on this call are like very familiar with this, but the other half maybe you aren't. The pattern is you'll use an AI agent or an AI tool, like maybe it's Anthropic or ChatGPT in a harness where then you're connecting to these different knowledge sources through MCP. And so you can grab the context through MCP uh, around like, oh, what are the core stocks? What's the brand guide? Those things. And then what's cool with Parta MCP is then you can push the agent then designs like the course output, and then it can actually push to Parta automatically.
Cool. I feel like it's time to move to localization because it's, I think, equally cool story. So, Leah, or like Veronica, you're kicking off this.
I am. And then Arya, are you keeping on screen or is Leah, oh, Leah, are you sharing now? Did we do the handover? Did we do it? Yeah. Awesome. Great. Well, it's so nice to meet all of you. My name is Veronica Stimson. I lead our partner enablement team here at Notion, and I work super closely with Arya, Leah, and Andrew as well on the call, especially with this part of MCP experiment that we got to be a part of. So quick snapshot before I hand things over to Leah, and she's going to walk you through the nitty gritty, but just kind of setting the stage around what partnerships here at Notion looks like. We have a pretty big gamut of partnerships that we support. So we're talking resellers, value-added resellers, SIs, GSIs, like basically partners that are involved in both selling Notion and working with our sellers, and then also servicing Notion and influencing that like growth of our product via, growth ARR. So we support millions of revenue each quarter with that. We also support over 35 different countries where our partners are either completely owning the market for us or they're partnering with like, sub-markets that we might not be able to focus on with our internal team. So we have partners all across the globe, and we officially support 6 different languages. So French, German, English, Spanish, Portuguese, Japanese, and Korean are the ones. So 6 outside of also English. So that we can service those markets appropriately, right? So we came across, you can imagine like with this type of partner ecosystem that we have, we've got a ton of content in a lot of different languages that we have to not only keep up with the content that is being pushed out as Arya just walked us through, but we're also trying to keep up with the language support and make sure that those partners in different countries are not falling behind. So if we do not hit our localization deadlines, as Leah and I know together, both from living firsthand, we feel some very real pains, right? That's missed quarterly revenue targets, and it's that inconsistent and kind of disconnected partner learning experience. So this is really where Parta comes in. We have all of our partner content that lives on Parta via Notion Academy. And of course, via this MCP, we've now been able to kind of build a really cool process around how to also speed up our localization. So I'll go ahead and hand it over to Leah, who's going to walk us through the deep details on how she did this.
Thanks, Ron. Thanks, Arya, for a great presentation. Note to self, not to present after you, never. But hopefully everyone will bear with me. So I run the localization for that content, and this red box and the thumb down that you saw there, that's me. That's my life, was my life. So Arya's content lives in Parta on the left, the box on the left, and to translate it, we ship it out to a separate translation system and then ship it back and run the LQA quality assurance test. Notice that the quality assurance only starts at the very end, after the long trip back and forth. And remember that, we'll get back to it. So 2 boxes, 2 errors. Every error is a person exporting, copying, clicking. And here is the real problem. The box on the right cannot see the box on the left. So this is the right box where the linguists worked. Multiple tags, no context, no way to know, to tell if a line is a headline or a button or how all these things sits together. They see the whole lesson as a grid, and with all the exporting and importing via connectors and integrations, plenty of breaking points on the way, and where there is a breaking point, it breaks, and twice if it can. This is the same lesson translated where it already lived. This is the right box. So the translator, whether it's a human or an AI, see what you see now. The title, the layout, the images, the button, nothing exported, nothing is pasted back. Context is stopped being an attachment and became the actual workplace.
Yeah. Leah, really quickly, sorry to interrupt. There's a question here. Are these views of localized content in Notion Academy, or is this a localization vendors tool?
This is how you see it in part. Yeah, like in Parta in Notion Academy. I mean, this is the Parta of Notion Academy.
Yeah, thanks for clarifying.
So this slide was commissioned for this presentation, but it's real. It wasn't. It's totally real. And our glossary says that, glossary, which means the official rule book or the dictionary, says role is one word in Japanese. But an editor seeing the whole lesson for the first time where the content lives said that it should be changed because to fit better the context, to fit the context better. So she changed it, same word, same glossary, but since they saw the context, they changed it for a better translation. And that was just one issue, lack of context. I'm coming from the localization industry where we say content is king, but the goal and our goal is to provide the best quality translation, not the infamous Google translated version. But tapping on Ron's presentation, content is only one issue. There are many. And the old way felt cumbersome, and I mean every word on this slide. the round trip, the cost, the time, the stale copy, which, by the way, I just got an email this morning. We had a problem with a different type of project that we could not export the copy back, the translation back from the translation system to where it lives. And what happened was that we couldn't, that it threw an error that we didn't recognize. So we contacted the translation system help center to figure out what was happening. And they checked internally and told us the English would change while at home while the translation was ongoing. So what we need to do now is resend the translation back from the home to the translation system, assign it back to the linguist, wait for them to finish it, then export it back, and hold our fingers that this time it's gonna export it successfully. So yeah, cumbersome, as I said, it's real. So the fix here, once we heard about the MCP, the fix here was not a better pipeline, it was deleting the pipeline. The content stayed put, and everybody comes to the content, whether it's the translator, the editor, the AI, in its natural habitat. So here's the new workflow. We're gonna explain each one in depth in a minute, but just an overview. First, the agent run on 4 simple ideas. It draft form your own material, whether it's your pages, your site, your terminology. Then it's blind check its work. A different model rereads the translation, and it never sees the English, never knows a machine wrote it. Then we have the human. I'll get back to this. But after the human edits the content in the editor that I showed you, we recheck it to every change to get, sorry, we recheck the translation to spot human error this time. Then the editor gonna approve or reject with an explanation, and then the machine is gonna learn. There are 4 IDs here, but you see 5 circles because the red one is the human factor in this workflow, and this isn't an idea, not mine anyway. But the human editor gets to decide, and nothing moves past this circle without a human touch. So let's start with drafting your first translation. So you draw on your own material. It works both ways. I mean, if you're just taking your first steps, welcome to localization hell. Just kidding, just kidding. Localization is an amazing field and the best field, and now I'm not joking. So if you don't have no glossary, no style guide, no memory, then no problem. Just point the agent to your website. You can see here the website, or to any published content that you have. You can also point it to your competitor website. If you're a localization pro, then you know what I'm talking about. Years of terminology, style guide, approved work, fit it, and this becomes the fuel your agent run on. The output is as good as your input. What's happening? Oh, this is okay. So this is a demo. We had to update one block. So I asked my agent to update. So the first, if you'll see, the first prompt was very detailed, but then after he was done with Japanese, I just tell him, okay, redo the same thing with Korean. And he found the block, he found the update, and it actually. And updated.
And Leah, sorry to interrupt, but what we're seeing here is a custom agent within Notion.
Correct.
Got it.
Well, the custom agent that's connected via the Parta, you can actually see there the parts where it's using the Parta MCP.
Yeah. Okay. So now we're moving, now we translated everything and we have the translation ready in Parta editor. Now we do the blind check. And here the writer never grades its own homework. And if you saw in demo, it told me to switch to model B. So, so once the translation is done, this is the part I really want you to steal, because I switch model and have the checker, and the checker first test is blind. It doesn't see the source text. It doesn't no labels. He doesn't have an idea that machine wrote it. And he asked me to change it to the other model. And he just read as a native reader, because literally that's the prompt or the brief I'm giving him. I'm telling him, you are the best human writer in Brazil, a published editor, you won prizes, the best editor human money can buy. Flattery is free, and it doesn't invoice us for this. And then it flags whatever it feels wrong, and whatever needs flagging. Now, why the different models is because research has shown us that a model reviewing its own work grades on a curve, which means there is there is a human bias, there is a model bias.
And Leah, when you refer to like two different model, is it like I don't know, like Fable versus Opus, or it's literally kind of like this
literally,
is like
ChatGPT. We do Anthropic. I do Anthropic, the translation with Anthropic's one of the models, and then I have ChatGPT check it.
okay. Thanks for
Here,
clarification.
for example, the checker AI, the one that reads all the references, flag that sales specialist is a new term. You didn't see it in the glossary, and it's pretty important one in a sales course. So it tells the editor, make sure this is correct and align with other roles that we already have in Portuguese. Also make sure that you align on gender inclusivity or whatever your style guide tells you. And by the way, here he just rated. He said that this writer, like he gave him 22 out of 100. So this is my favorite bug report of the year, because the blind check also caught defect in our English. So it's noticed something was wrong in the source, and this was a bonus that we discovered along the way. Remember the old process that I told you to remember in the beginning, the first slide, that QA or LQA could only start once the translation was delivered in Parta. So here now the QA, quality assurance, starts at the starts and run through the whole process. And by the way, when I say they, I mean the agent, but also the linguist. Because once they started working in Parta, they began flagging source issues, and we fixed them while they were still editing. Now the human side, which is always more complicated. So there's a new study that researchers ran a simple test. They showed professional linguists two translations of the same text, one by a human and one by an AI, but they swapped the labels. And 87% of flagged the human translation as the worst one, just because it had AI label on it. An editor changed the same text twice as much because it was labeled AI, which means work didn't need fixing get fixed anyway because it's tagged as AI. So of course, this is nobody's fault. There's many factors contributing this, including job loss and anxiety we all have. But they all push in the same direction, which is over editing. So how do you make sure there's no over editing, which would defeat the purpose and get expensive? So I fix the conditions and not the people. So for the machine side, we eliminated the bias by removing the label, the blind review, and then we also have a translation memory going on. But the human side, we cannot eliminate the human, but we can mitigate by providing the reports. So the reports is reading for the editors. We share the logic and thinking behind each translation with them, and it keeps them on target. And along the way, they're also learning a new skill, which I call smart AI editing. That's my experience anyway. I can talk hours about AI in translation, in localization. Anyone interested, DM me. But this is, so now we're moving to the last phase before the learn. So once the lesson is back from the editor, we run a second QA pass, this time to catch human errors. So typos, inconsistency. I ask the agent to make sure that the content is consistent. I mean, we have 5 lessons, so it's consistent across the 5 lessons and the whole course. There are also false positive in these reports. I mean, agent can be incredibly smart, but quite dumb at the same time. So the report lands like this. It has direct links to each block where it found a typo or anything else that the editor needs to recheck. It has the current, change to, and then the editor can either accept and implement or decline with a reason. And we're at the last stage. So once everything signs off, we deliver it all back, including the editor notes for the agent to digest and learn. Real fix go to into the memory, and the AI learn, and it's educate himself, and it's going to be more educated for the next course we're going to run. Anything preferential, I would say differently. It's logged and it's visible, but it's left out of the learning because next time we might get another editor with different preferential style of writing, and we don't want to restrict them to that. And that's it. So switching from the old, this is the process. So switching from the old way to the new way, our early data points to a roughly 44% saving in money and about 2 to 3 weeks faster per course. This is early data. Ask me again in 2 quarters, and hopefully I'll have more information. So anyone is interested in building their own agent? Yes, you can. So build your own agent starting Monday or Friday. Why delay Monday? Do tomorrow. The shopping list has 4 items. So your Parta page, your live website that's already, you have your content and style and terminology, you just don't know it, or your competitors. 1 paragraph of instructions. You can ask your favorite LLM to help you with this. Just read it before you copy paste. And it's always a good idea to prohibit in bold caps, touching or deleting anything from the source. Then you need a native speaker you trust to review the translation. As you grow, you can add all the other stuff: glossary, translation memory, style guide, the do not translate list, which you leave in English, second model for blind review, and that's it for me. Thank you.
Leah, can you go to the next slide real quick before everyone drops? Just want to flash up a QR code before we wrap up. Like as we wrap up and take questions, just wanted to say we are also, for anybody who wants to like talk to a Notion expert and about setting up the Parta MCP, we're offering free 30-minute sessions to do that. So Kylie put it in chat and here's the QR code. Just wanted to plug that before everyone drops.
Yay, no questions.
Thanks, Leah. Great story. Great story. I feel like, yeah, I was inspired because like, like it's also kind of challenging the core tech stack that you have on your end and just like completely rethinking those things. That was just completely blown my mind. I know like
I'm
I know we are
recognizing
in time, like right.
Yeah, so I'll do just like a 10-second synopsis of what I'm hearing. Like the bar, well, like products are changing faster than ever. And there's like this huge opportunity also with localization and the threshold, like the energy expenditure required to keep your content up to date and to translate it into multiple languages and keep that content up to date and fresh. That's that effort is dropping significantly because of LLMs and MCP. And y'all are at the vanguard. It's just really inspiring to see what you're able to accomplish as a small team. Ton of value you're unlocking. So thank you for sharing.
And maybe one other thing too, like all of us started small and then grew. Like this only took us originally like 15, 20 minutes to set up the first like connection and go with that. And then like over time we added on more, structure and made it better and better and better. So if anyone's feeling a little overwhelmed too, like you can start with something very small and then build from there too.
Couldn't agree more on that. I think this is the process. It's not like there is not like right or wrong. You need just to build the kind of the formula that works for your company, for your kind of tech stack, for your configuration. But I think in the customer education, kind of we get into the world where it's not just optional. I think we get into the world where just things will be accelerating more and more. So we need to find the way how we can start building scalable systems. And that's becoming a new kind of core focus for all of us. So I'm so excited. Aria, Veronica, Leah, thanks so much for kicking off this session. Thanks, Ryan, for being with us. As mentioned, we'll follow up with a bunch of materials and recording. And I think in the next week, we'll be announcing episode 2. So stay tuned and have a great rest of your week. Thanks so much for joining us. Bye-bye.
Bye.